November of 63, I wanted to invite Brother Branham to come to Beaumont again. And I went up to Shreveport at the Thanksgiving convention. And Brother Branham that night told of speaking the tumor out of Sister Meady. And I sat there that night and heard him talk about the fish and the squirrels and Hattie's boys and the storm and Sister Branham's tumor. And I want to tell you, folks, I believed it from the first time I heard it. If you say. Now, I'm going to tell you what I believe, and I think I can show you, Brother Branham said that power will come upon the church, the believers, the bride. He says, I know that to be true first-handed, and we have listened to the spirit of Antichrist so much that it puts it all in Brother Branham until we're living below our privileges. I invited Brother Branham to to Beaumont that night. He told me that he'd have somebody contact me. He did. He had Brother Borders and Brother Momless come in January of that year and set the meetings up which we had in Beaumont, Texas in March. Now, in the meantime, Sister Jones and her husband gave me a tape, and it was Indictment. And I listened to it one Sunday afternoon. And I was so convicted. The most holy people in the most holy city took the most holy man, gave him the most cruel death, and crucified him. And now then we're crucifying him again. I was so convicted, I preached that to my congregation that night. And when I got through, I was the first one in the altar. Come back Wednesday night, I preached the same sermon again and went to the altar again. Next Sunday morning, I preached it again. Because it spoke to my heart. I saw that it was possible for us to crucify Jesus Christ afresh by just our frivolous denominational attitude and not believe in God for the reality of His Word. Well, Brother Branham was planning on coming to the meeting, and he's coming down, and he had meetings in Tulare, and then he's going to have them in Dallas, and going to have them in Beaumont, and Denham Springs, then Louisville, Mississippi, then Birmingham, Alabama, and Tampa, Florida. See, it was about 7 meetings across the country. And I was planning on intercepting him about Dallas and going all the way to Florida with him. Well, 2 weeks before he was due in Beaumont, Texas, I made an announcement to my little congregation of about 50 or 60 people. I said, now, if you come to church tonight, I want to tell you everything that I know about William Branham so that you'll know how to invite the people to the meeting this week. And so that night they came, and everybody was there, and I was about 15 minutes deep, and something was going to be about 45 minutes long. And I made the statement. I said, now, Brother Branham is the long-windedest preacher you'll ever hear. But his meetings are worth going to because there's always miracles at every service. And about that time, the phone rung in my office. And a young boy that was living with us, Clyde Decker, went in and answered the phone, and he stepped back up on the platform and interrupted me, and he was as white as his white shirt. And he said, Brother Green, he said, this is Brother Branham on the phone. Now, Brother Branham's in Tucson, and I'm in Beaumont, Texas, talking about him, and I told the congregation, I said, look, since I'm talking about him, let me go talk to him, and then maybe I'll have something else to tell you when I come back. Truer words have I never prophesied. I go to the phone, and I pick up the phone, and I said, hello, Brother Branham. He said, hello, Brother Perry. I said, Brother Branham, do you know what I'm doing? I was going to tell him I was talking about him. And he said, yes, I do. I didn't say, you're kidding. You don't really know. I knew that he knew. And when I got my composure, I said, Brother Branham, am I wrong? He said, Brother Perry, I just called you to tell you to do all that's within your heart. And if you make a mistake, I'll call you. Now that, if you believe it, is a life-changing moment. Because from then until Brother Branham left us, every time my phone rung, but whether a prophet calls you or not, God sees everything you do. I could no longer lose my temper with my kids. I could no longer be upset with my wife without knowing that God saw it. And he was able to show it to somebody else. And whether it ever happens to you or not, the truth is that God knows it. And it needs to change your life. Well, we went to Dallas, Texas, where Brother Branham's in a meeting. Can I tell you two more experiences? We've been almost 2 hours. None of you have left. Now, you can leave anytime you want to unless I'm singing. Now, if I'm singing and you leave, that hurts my feelings bad. So just don't do it. Just stay with me, huh? But I went to Dallas, where Brother Branham was going to be in Souls Harbor Church. That's W.V. Grant's church. And Brother Borders was the manager, and he told me that Brother Gordon Lindsay wanted to visit with him about Brother Branham going to Africa. Well, since I had gone to school in Wasatch in Dallas, I knew my way around, so Roy asked me if I would take him out there. So we drove out there, and we went to Brother Gordon Lindsay's office. At that time, it was the Voice of Healing. And Brother Lindsay was telling Brother Borders that he wanted Brother Branham to go to Africa for meetings. And he really wanted to use Brother Branham to draw a crowd, and then he wanted to have his Christ for the Nations church and his, things like that. And he really wanted to do that to draw the crowd. And Brother Borders had enough experience, he knew that. And Brother Lindsay made a statement. He said, said when I worked with Bill Branham, he said, we had to protect him from all kind of doctrine and everything. But said, he's as much like a child as anybody I've ever seen. Now, man, it even hurts me now to say that. But he said, he's so easily influenced. He said, take, for example, that doctrine, that serpent seed doctrine he's got. He said, some old man come out of the woods dressed in toe sack or some old hermit or something and give Brother Branham that doctrine, and he believed it, and he got up and preached it in his church, and that tape's got out, and it's just about ruined his ministry. Well, somebody had shared with me a little bit about the serpent seed, and I don't know, even before I knew all the details, it made sense to me. It made more sense than Eve skipping through the Garden of Eden and finding a snake that could talk, is what they believe. And man, if we could find that thing now, let's sell him to Ringling Barnum Bailey Circus. They'll make a fortune out of him. But that's what people believe. Look how simple Brother Branham handled it. If eating an apple will make them realize they're naked, let's pass out the apples. They're going naked. How simple can it be? And folks, I tell you what, once you understand that, all of this other falls together. You can't understand predestination, sovereignty of God, election, all that until you get that in there. And it's nothing but original sin. You really believe that she found a snake that could talk? Oh, don't get me started on that. That's 3 hours. And I want you to know that wasn't no new doctrine either. I can show you that in ancient manuscripts. Rabbis believe that. They even believe that when Jesus here said, we not be born of the devil. That Satan not, Jesus said, the Satan, devil is your father. You be born of the Satan. Oh, no. We be not born of fornication. Be not as Cain. He was of that wicked one. Just time and time again. Such is the way of an adulterous woman. She eateth and wipeth her mouth and saith, I've done no evil. I mean, your Bible's full of it. And they believed it back there then. You find in all the early writings, and Brother Branham just brought it back to light and told us this is what it is. Satan had covered it up, and it's still happening nowadays. I won't get started. But Brother Lindsay, he started on that, he told that, and I just spoke up and I said, Brother Gordon, have you heard the tape? You know what he said? And Roy Borders tagged me under the table. And I knew that meant shut up. So I was quiet, and Brother Lindsay went on and talked to Brother Roy, and Brother Roy was real nice, and I took Brother Roy back to the motel. And that night we went to service, and Brother Borders introduced Brother Branham, and they had a choir that sang, and after the choir sang, well, it left the platform, and the only person left on the platform was Brother Gordon Lindsay. And he was sitting in a metal chair, and I'll never forget, he was sitting up there, and he was rocked back like this, and he's sitting, and I remembered how odd he looked, he's sitting like this, And Brother Branham come out to preach, and I think it's a greater than Solomon is here. And my wife and I were sitting back in the back of Souls Harbor Church, and it was an old theater building, a real big place. There's probably 1,000, 1,500 people there. And Brother Branham's preaching away, and he stops, and you can hear it on tape. He says, wait a minute, something's wrong here. He said, here it is. He said, This person over here's got this disease, and this over here's got it too. He said these two spirits are screaming out against each other. He said, I'd take charge of that in the name of the Lord. And then he stopped and he said, now, you know, some people have seen that happen thousands of times, and not one time has it ever been wrong. But when I tell them I got the doctrine of serpent seed from the angel of the Lord, they say I get it from some old man that come out of the wilderness dressed in sackcloth or in toe sacks, and he turned around and looked Brother Gordon Lindsay right in the face. And I tell my wife, I says, I wonder what Brother Branham said when Roy Borders told him that today. And so, boy, just soon as service was over with, out the back door I went, around the church I went, and I caught Brother Roy getting in the car, and I says, hey, Roy, what did Brother Branham say today when you told him about Gordon Lindsay said? He said, I didn't tell him, you did. A whole handful of seed was planted, because this time I was part of the conversation. I was beginning to see, folks, that there was something here. That somebody knew the secrets in Ahab's bedchamber. And I didn't have any trouble finding that in my Bible. And nobody had really ever told me about the spirit of Elijah to forerun the second coming. So Brother Branham came to Beaumont, Texas the next week, and he preached several messages, and one of them is entitled The Voice of the Sign.